right, what's up everybody? We'll go ahead and get started in a few minutes here. But as always, if you guys can hear us and if we're streaming in 1080p, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started here, everyone. So good evening and welcome back to Walks on Wall Street. Today is Friday, June 28, 2024. The time is 10:20 p.m. and we were reporting live outside of the 432 Park Avenue building. Now, today was the official last day of the quarter. Q2 is officially behind us. We only have 2 more quarters until the end of the year, so the year is officially half over, which is pretty crazy to think about. Very, very wild. Now, we're going to be talking about a few things today. Obviously, the biggest piece of information or data that we received today, right at 8:30 in the morning, is the PCE inflation data, which came in line with expectations, 2.6% in the month of May. Now, if we do a little bit of a quick review here in terms of the PCE, if you go back to June of 2022, PCE peaked in the United States at 7.1%, and we hit a trough all the way in January of 2024 when PCE hit 2.5%. But ever since January, we've pretty much been higher to sideways in the PCE. February was 2.5, March was 2.7, April was 2.7 again, and then in May we came down a little bit at 2.6. Now, we did hear from San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly. She had a few things to say about this inflation print. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but she said it's just an additional news that monetary policy is working. Inflation is gradually cooling, but then again, if we think about where inflation needs to be as it relates to where it is, I think we're still pretty far off. Now, if we turn over to the equity side of the house, the markets were actually materially higher on the open, rallied throughout the day, and pretty much closing at the low of the day. If you look at the SPX, which is the ticker symbol for the S&P 500, we hit new all-time record highs intraday, reversed and closed lower at the low of the day, closing the week at 5460. Now, if you look at the ticker symbol SOXX, which is the semiconductor ETF, that also came under some pressure. As we've been talking about specifically in the newsletter, I think semiconductors are going to give some back here after their major run-up rally. So with that being said, let's go ahead and close up the laptop. I'll say hello to everybody in the chat, and we will get started here, folks, as we officially close Q2. Thanks so much for joining. All right, let's see who we got. What's up, Dave in Maine? We also see Western Mass Dave. Gord Allen, what's up? Sally's here. Shannon, Solo 401, A Collector's Dream. Lemonade, what's going on? Professor Dario, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining. Lee, this is 2x in a day. I know I was gonna leave from Miami tonight, but some things came up and it's looking like we're gonna have to leave from Miami tomorrow. But it's good news. So good news. All good things working. Ramiro, thank you so much for your generous $10 donation. We appreciate you. Thank you for your support as we're going to make this pass right outside 432 Park Avenue. We'll show you the rotunda here, or the main valet. I always like looking at this view of 432 when standing directly, sort of equidistant between the two sides of it. But Ramiro, thank you so much. But check this out, the main 432 Park. You have those beautiful revolving doors, and then you could scan all the way up the building. It's pretty cool to see these massive 10-foot by 10-foot windows going all the way up to the top. Now, where you see the strip of lights on every so often floors, those are actually completely open to let airflow flow through the building, so the building doesn't collapse, which is pretty interesting. Doc 7 is here. What's up? Gord says, I wish I had your problems, Florida tomorrow. Yeah, I'm excited to be back. We'll see how long I actually stay there, but it looks like I'm probably gonna head back July 4th in the morning and be back in time for the fireworks. Yeah, Solo 401 says it kind of looks fake. It really does. It's just an amazing piece of engineering, for sure. Pretty much all these Billionaires Row style buildings. Well, I guess I'll tell you guys where we're gonna go tonight. What I think I wanna do is the following. Let's start to head towards the west side. It looks like the wind is kind of calmed down a little bit. So maybe we'll go all the way down through the Hudson Yards. I think the High Line is closed, so maybe we'll walk all the way down to Meatpacking. And if that little island is still open, I wanna go over there and check out the views of, or I should say from Little Island, looking at the World Trade Center, looking at the Empire State Building, because earlier today we went over there and it was awesome. It was a really, really amazing park that they opened in New York. But a solid first half of the year for the markets. Now, as we spoke about before, stock market performance during presidential election years are usually the best when you have the president coming up for re-election. So if we can use history as our guide, this year should end pretty positive for the market. Now, the worst quarter for stock market performance during a presidential election year, when the president is running for re-election, is Q3. Now, you usually see a little bit of a correction leading up into the election, right? As everybody gets all cranked up, everyone gets all uncertain. And I think there'll be no shortage of uncertainty this election cycle, particularly after what we saw last night, or maybe I should say after what we didn't see last night. And then once the election is over through November, things tend to settle down, the holidays come in, and we usually see a very, very strong Santa Claus rally to cap off the year into New Year's. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. You know, you may see some volatility going through Q3 right as we head into November. And then I think volatility will subside and we'll get a nice push as we head into 2025. So we'll see. If we use history as our guide, that's usually what happens. Let's go ahead and make this left on Fifth Avenue. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Jafet Perez, Tesla was over 200 today. Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I think Tesla bottomed. I really do, in April. I think that was the bottom of that stock in April, and I think it's, well, not. I shouldn't use the term smooth sailing from here, but I think you've seen the low for Tesla for the cycle. Jafet Perez says the Santa Claus rally would be sweet in Q4. Well, if we use history as our guide, that's usually what plays out. Soho Joe says last night was pure comedy. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Which, if you think about what causes volatility, it's uncertainty in investors. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but there will be no shortage of uncertainty leading us to the presidential election day. But just like in every single presidential election, everyone thinks this is the most important presidential election of our lifetime. They said that the last time, they said that the last time before that. They'll say it this time. I think now that we have the first debate behind us, you're really going to start to see the propaganda machine like crank on both sides. And I've kind of fallen for this too. If you remember, the advice I've given to myself is just kind of try to tune out all the politics stuff. And I think I should be taking my own advice more, particularly now that you're just going to see relentless clips upon clips upon clips from just the debates. It's just essentially propaganda, right? It's propaganda from the left, it's propaganda from the right, and it is going to be absolutely relentless with the political propaganda leading up until the election. So I think as investors, if we could just tune all that out, try really not to let it get to your head. It's already kind of gotten in my head. You know, I'm human just like everyone else, right? I could admit when I've been paying too much attention to the politics. The debates got me last night. They suckered me in. I listened to it, I watched it. I had a few laughs, but at the end of the day, when I went to sleep last night, I'm like, damn, I really wasted my time watching this, and I wasted my energy on that. So I'm gonna try not to do that. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. The propaganda machine is, it's in full tilt. And when you kind of, if you look through your Twitter feed, or I don't have Facebook, but if you look through your Facebook feed, it is like such blatant propaganda from both sides, from the Trump administration, from the Biden administration. It's almost like sickening. So I think I'm gonna mute those two keywords. I'm probably gonna mute Trump, and I'm probably going to mute Biden, so I don't have any more political stuff on my pages. So I think that could get investors all cranked up. That's kind of what my point was in making that statement. Let's go down here because I want to check out 53 West 53rd. You'll see the volatility, and then you'll have the presidential election. You'll have the result. You'll have half the country freaking out about it, saying that it's the worst thing that's ever happened. America's over. Then, Christmas dinner will set in, and then people will forget about it, and then things will go back to normal. That's kind of what I think will happen, which is the same thing that happens in every cycle. People get used to it. So, hey, Michelle K, what's up? Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful night in Manhattan. NBA Elias, greetings, Tom. Hope you had a good week. I did have a very good week. I was kind of blessed today not to have a crazy day at all. It was actually pretty quiet for me today, which is unusual. Peter says the problem is monetary policy has been fairly aggressive, but it is the fiscal policy that will cause inflation problems for sure. And the problem is, to kind of piggyback off of your point, neither political party, neither the Democrats or the Republicans, are in a position to solve our fiscal side of the house. Whether you have a re-election for President Biden, it's going to be spending unbelievable. And if you have Trump elected, it's going to be spending unbelievable. So there's really no winning on the fiscal side of the house. We'll just say that. Hey, Esmeralda, what's up? Esmeralda says, I don't know, Tom. The candidates are highly unusual breeds. It's frightening, for sure. But, I think if we take a step back and really think about it, right? Everyone's freaking out about, oh my gosh, Joe Biden's performance was horrible, which it was. It was terrible. But I don't really blame Joe Biden for that. I blame his counsel, the people who are advising him. That's really who I blame. I think it's gotten to this point where it could potentially be categorized as elder abuse, in my view. Everyone gets old. I'm gonna get old, and I've said this last night. Please God, hopefully I'll get old. And older people, when you're pushing 85, you're not super sharp. You're not gonna be up there grandstanding like a Vivek Ramaswamy or a Gavin Newsom. That's not gonna be your performance. So everyone was pretty freaked out about that, but the country goes on. The US is the greatest economy in the world by far right now, with all the incompetent leadership. And like I've reverted back to saying, and this is 53 West 53rd Street, you can kind of see the pool a little bit right here if you look very closely. Regardless of who wins the presidential election, I think either Joe Biden, if he wins again, or Trump, if he wins this time around, I think the country will be fine. I really do believe that. I think it'll be fine. It's fine right now. I think it'll be fine if Joe Biden is reelected or if Trump. Now, do I have my preferences on who I would want to see? If I voted, which I don't, I can't vote. I won't get into it, but I can't vote. And if my only two I would vote for Trump. But I think if Biden gets in, I think things will still be fine. Javette Perez says, I saw the entire debate and I enjoyed it. I mean, it was funny, right? There was some funny stuff. All right, guys, I'm gonna turn around and you're gonna see a beautiful view of Steinway Tower. Look at how cool this is. So, the skinniest residential apartment building in the world. And it looks like some people are home tonight. I always look up there and imagine how cool it must look to be up there looking down here. I mean, the views must be spectacular. You can see all the way to the World Trade Center, especially on a night like this when it's super clear. Western Mass Dave says, I didn't find anything funny about the debate, just in my opinion. I thought the funniest part of the debate was the golf talk. When President Biden was like, when I was a vice president, I got down to a 6 handicap. And then you can see, in the split screen, you can see Trump's ego cranking, right? He wanted to break character and lose his cool and let his ego take over and say, there's no way you're sick. They're just guys throwing shots at each other just like any of us, right? But I will say this, there's no way about the rules. When I looked up what a 6 handicap was, there's no way in holy hell that Joe Biden's is a 6 handicap, which makes it even more funny. We're actually gonna, what's up? Yeah, the internet has been pretty spotty all throughout the day today, I've noticed. Let's see if we can navigate our way through Midtown and get out of here. I think once we pass 42nd Street to the south side, the internet should be fine. Maybe we'll walk one more avenue over so we can kind of avoid some of the stuff. NBA Elias for sure. NBA says, Tom, anything Jerome Powell says or does will have bigger impact on your finances than Biden or Trump. I agree. I tend to agree. Jefferson says that's the right mindset. You make your own luck, regardless of the incumbent. It takes time to get it, but believe me, it's worth it for sure. 100%. You know, Joe Biden is not sitting behind his desk telling you you can't pursue this opportunity or pursue that opportunity. It's just all political nonsense. And I think it's important to remember that, you know, like I said before, so long as the founding principles of the US are in place, and they are, it's not changing under Biden, it's not changing under Trump, it's just all political banter either way. You can make a really good living, make a really good fortune in the US, raise your family, do whatever you want, pursue whatever opportunities you want. And it's been like that under every president. It's been like that under Obama. It's been like that under President Trump. And it's like that right now under Biden, whether you like the guy or not. That's just the truth. But the way I think about it, again, is the preservation of mental capital as we head into the biggest propaganda window, which is now, right? The elections, there's going to be advertisements, clips, and all of these little clips and sound bites are going to be meant to purposely infuriate you, right? To enrage you. You know, from the left, you're going to hear It's like an ideal scenario for the market in November is a split government. That's always the best scenario for the market. Because at the end of the day, these politicians think they have the magic potion. They think they have the magic solution. And the magic potion and the magic solution is for them to do nothing, is for them to change nothing and just let the free markets do their thing. They do a lot more harm than good in most cases. All right, let's try to head west if we can. I just want to try to avoid the buffer zones as much as possible. I know we're going to hit one here. But I want to go to Little Island because that place is awesome. Let's make this left here. Western Mass Dave, this is Tom. Last night in New York City for a bit. Let's keep talking for about 45 more minutes about politics, specifically about the debate last night. I don't know if I could spend 45 more minutes on the debate, but since it is Western Mass Dave and he is the core bedrock of the stream, I guess we could hammer on it for 45 more minutes, and maybe we'll open up the chat to a full-on abortion debate. So everyone, what are your thoughts on abortion in the chat? Just trolling Dave, if satire, for those of you who didn't pick that up. We're not going to be debating abortion on tonight's live stream. All right, let's blow all the way down to 42nd Street, and then let's just try to cut across all the way to the Intrepid. Yeah, Kyle Lacey. Hilarious. This is News Corp. Speaking of Fox News. Direct view of 270 Park here to the gentleman who wanted me to look at 270 Park. It's completely topped out. We just have to put the glass on the top, and then we should be good to go there. 270. They're going to break ground very soon at 350 Park, which is going to be the new Citadel Securities building, in partnership with Steve Ross. Oh, in other good news, we actually do have some good news. In the newest bill that was proposed in New York City, they've opted to refund the New York Public Library, which is great. Because right now they're operating on cut hours. And I don't think the main Steven Schwartzman building is open on Sundays anymore. So that's gonna change, which is good. Oh, is that right? They're sunk 547 feet down? I don't know about that. That seems crazy. But yeah, earlier today, I went to Little Island for the first time. Never been there before. And super impressed. I mean, what a cool place. And that's where we're headed. Apparently it's open at midnight. Just the views there are unbelievable. But I guess we'll just quickly recap market action for the quarter. Semiconductors really the standout for Q1 and Q2. Q2 is officially over as of today. And markets, S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, gapped up into new all-time record highs right as trading opened. But reversed significantly lower to close at the low of the day in what's called as a bearish engulfing candle. So I think you're probably gonna have a little bit more downside pressure here, particularly in semis. You'll probably have a rotation into the, I should say, the former true market leaders who are just kind of catching steam again, which is your Amazons, your Netflix. Maybe there'll be a resurgence in an energy trade. And in the best ideal scenario, fingers crossed, maybe we go through a little bit of a correction into the election cycle, which can set these stocks up again for a big rally to cap off 2024. I think 2024, we're gonna see outsized returns for equities to close the year. Brad's brains says, did you put the spread on Tesla? I have not, but I think I'm going to slowly. I'll let you know if I do, but I will probably build that Tesla position. But I'm kind of on the fence about it because it breaks every rule that I follow. I don't buy stocks that are that depressed, so I'm still figuring it out. But if I had to flip a coin and say, you know, the next 12 months, Tesla up or down, it's up, at least from my perspective. So, which is good because those type of stocks make up a big weighting in the S&P 500. It's been so depressed. Let's say if we have, you know, 100% rally in Tesla into the end of the year, which is entirely possible, and we have a little bit of cooling in some of the frothy AI names like Nvidia and the like, that could balance out, that could really balance out the index. So we'll see. Let's see if we can jaywalk here. And then obviously today, we got the inflation data out for the PCE, which is not really making any further material progress lower. Yeah, it's down month over month, but I believe the April reading was 2.7, May's is 2.6, but it's the same thing with CPI. You know, we're stuck in this range. Now, we heard from San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly.
And she said this was encouraging, but look, what I'll say, the problem is this, and there's a lot of very well-respected real estate people out here calling for Fed Chair Jerome Powell to, you know, cut the rates and open up the market again. I think that'd be very, very ill-founded for the Fed chair to do. And if he did do that, that would benefit me a lot. But thinking about the greater good of the country, that would really solidify sustained inflation in the most important categories, such as food and energy. And the lion's share of Americans, as we've discussed before, they can't really afford to have their grocery bill go up another, 10% on a year-over-year basis. So the silent tax, right? Not to get too political, but there was a lot of talk in last night's debate about, Trump wants to give the most tax cuts for the rich and the wealthy, but the biggest tax has been on the middle class and the lower class, and that hidden tax is inflation, right? But nobody talks about it, but that is the biggest tax on the lower 75% rung of Americans. Because it's really the top 10%, not 25%, but for this point we'll keep with it. For the top 25% of Americans, what helps them outpace inflation, right? They don't really need wage growth to help them out with outpacing inflation, because they own a lot of assets that are simultaneously going up, getting themselves over that hurdle, right? The S&P 500 is up, I think, as of today's close, I think up over 15% for the year. The wealthy own real estate, which has gone up probably on average, depending on what you own, probably a 10 handle for the year. So if you were to cut rates, it would really, really benefit wealthier people. Because yeah, it would get the market moving, it would get real estate transactions done, it would really bail out a lot of commercial operators, right? A lot of commercial operators sitting on a lot of this poor office product. It would bail them out in a major way. It really wouldn't provide any sort of stimulus to the middle class. If anything, it would bury them more, because you would have an uptick in inflation. It's just not going to happen. You can't undo a decade of ZIRP with 18 months of rate hikes. It's going to take a little bit longer than that. So when you think about taxation, the biggest tax the middle class has to worry about is inflation. That's a tax in and of itself. ND Elias, Tom, any thoughts on Nike cratering today? I don't really follow Nike, just to be quite honest. My focus, really the sectors that I am honed in on, is semis, enterprise software, pretty much all the TMLs. I've never owned Nike. I don't really cover it. So I don't really have any input on it, to be honest. What do you think about it? If you could summarize your thoughts in the chat. Triple Jesus, is anybody expecting another stimulus check for Trump? Yeah. That was another crazy thing. People traded. Triple D says Tom used to love speaking about Atlassian back in the day. Yeah, that was my biggest winner I've ever had. And I don't even look at it anymore. I mean, that thing is down significantly after the top in 2021. And I think that's important. You know, that's a really good lesson. And we've written about this a lot in the newsletter. Once TML's top, they're usually cooked for good most times. So you can't be married to these things. You got to blow it out, just like that person blew the red light. But yeah, team, ticker symbol TEAM. Michael Cannon Brooks. I don't even think I have it on my watch list anymore. Pam says, Tom, where would you put your stop on Tesla? I don't really even like to disclose. I'll disclose if I put a position on, but I don't advise anyone to follow me or do anything. But I usually blow the position out if it goes 7% below the entry, and be ready, you know, to get back in if it doesn't. But I don't advise on where to buy, where to sell. Just because I don't want the headaches of people copy trading. I'm sure you can understand. But I think it's a very good lesson, right? Because if you think about all of the greats, Stan Druckenmiller of the world, Paul Tudor Jones of the world, there'll be these articles, right? Warren Buffett's. There'll be these articles that says, oh, Warren Buffett just bought this stock. You should too. I think that's really, really poor advice. And I'll tell you why. Because, yes, these people are brilliant, right? The best investors in the world. But the best investors in the world are also wrong about 50% of the time. The reason why they're the best investors is because they know how to get out of their position, and they'll happily do it if they're wrong. Right? I think the biggest example of this most recently was Ackman's massive position in Netflix. Right? He disclosed a massive position in Netflix. There was a bunch of CNBC articles about it saying, you know, Bill Ackman just bought Netflix. You should too. 2 days later, the stock gapped down on worse than expected earnings, and they liquidated the whole position. And he put out a statement and he's like, yeah, it just went against our thesis. Our fundamental thesis has changed. We blew out the position. And I think they took like a $200 million loss in 2 days on it. And that was actually the right play. Now, Netflix went on to almost reach new all-time record highs, but that was actually the right play to lose that $200 million bucks. Because what happens most times is the stock will gap down 20%, and then over the next month, it goes down another 20%. And then the next month, it'll go down another 20%. Most people, particularly retail, will just hold it and hold it and hold it and pray and cross their fingers that it comes back, right? The best, I should say, the institutions, they'll gladly blow out the position, right? They'll take the, you know, the 200, in this case, that was an aggressive hit, but you can understand, they'll take the $200 million loss and they'll reallocate capital to the best positions, the best ideas in their portfolio. And that's good portfolio management, is to be able to acknowledge when you're wrong, blow out the position, lose money, right? Practice losing money and add to the winners, right? If you have a garden, you don't pick the really nice flowers, right? You let the flowers bloom and grow and look really nice. You pick the weeds, right? You get the weeds out of the garden. But what most people do, if they buy a stock and the stock goes up 20%, they're like, oh my God, it went up 20%. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna close out the position, and then they make 20%. But if their stock is down 20%, which you really should never let it go down before you blow it out, they'll be like, it'll come back. It'll come back. 70% later, it's still sitting in the portfolio and it's down 70%. So what most people do is they pick the flowers and they let the weeds grow. You got to rip all the weeds out and add to those flowers, right? Put more fertilizer on the flowers. Doc Sevens, what do you think about the new Pershing Square? I think that's going to be a SPAC, right? Isn't that a SPAC deal, Ackman's company? I mean, I don't know. It could be coming public via IPO, but I think that may be a SPAC deal. Is it not? I don't know. Man, 34th Street is really active tonight. Let's go to the back side of the Moynihan train station. Someone's talking about Jamie Dimon and the stress tests. Well, look, Jamie Dimon's set to benefit every which way if you think about it. Now, I don't know, I don't want to say like Jamie Dimon's, he's chomping at the bit, hoping all these smaller regional players will go under so we could sit back and pick up the pieces. But look, what we've been seeing is exactly that. The big banks essentially cannibalize the smaller regional players. What we don't want to see is a situation like we have in Canada, where there's a handful of big banks and no other options. But it seems as if that's probably going to be the case in the US too. I really don't like walking through this scaffolding piece here. I feel like the internet is more choppy tonight than usual. I think they may be doing some repair work on some of the towers. Doc 7, I think I just answered that question, didn't I? About Pershing Square? I said I think it's going to come public via SPAC, is it not? I could be wrong, but usually Ackman is the SPAC guy. Same with Chamath. I think all of those SPACs are big money grabs, to be honest. If you look at all of the deals that Chamath Palihapitiya has done, almost all of them are either out of business or down 90% from where they went public. Pretty much all of them.
I'm talking to you. I'm for her man. That's on my mama. If she acts crazy. I don't like that.
Let's go over one more. And then we'll head down. the Manhattan Center. Headed towards Hudson Yards. Hey, Kaka Silva, thank you so much for your very generous donations. Tom, what do you think about D-Wave Quantum? I have no thoughts on it. Are you talking about quantum computing? Didn't Google's quantum computer just solve one of the hardest problems ever that's supposed to take 44 years to solve? But they solved it in like 40 seconds. What's Google's quantum computer called? I forget, it's only with an S.
Fuck that guy. I hate him before, I hate him even more now.
What's Google's quantum computer called? It's like something. But yeah, I was reading an article that it solved this problem that's supposed to take like 44 years to solve in a few minutes. Check out the edge. Oh, that's what's going on at Madison Square Garden tonight. I was wondering what's going on. Yeah, I was walking around the city seeing a bunch of WWE shirts. So there is a WWE event going on at the Garden. Copy that. This is 9th Avenue. Try to cross here by the B&H. Look at that. Beautiful view. I guess more broadly, what I think about quantum computing and AI is if everything that the experts say is going to happen is true, we need to figure out the energy problem. You know, we need to figure out how we're going to produce enough energy to actually make AI and quantum computing a reality. That's what I think. Yeah, Doc 7, like, here's my thing. Like, I'm not gonna buy Pershing Square. You know, Bill Ackman has a very, as you said, concentrated portfolio of 30 stocks. I think, you know, yeah, I would never buy Pershing Square. And I like Bill Ackman a lot. But you could just buy the underlying common, I guess. But Ackman will probably make another $2 billion, $3 billion personally off of that SPAC. Which, by the way, is the reason, again, not to really cook Chamath, but I'll say allegedly, right? Because I'm not a mind reader, but I think it's pretty obvious. All the SPAC deals Chamath did, he knew all those companies were bullshit. Allegedly, right? It's just a massive cash grab. If you can churn out a bunch of SPAC deals, you know, offload it to the public, you know, sell a ridiculous bag of goods, which they did. Chamath is a smart guy, right? He's a very, very smart guy. And I think it's quite obvious. He knew all those companies, the revenue projections, the earnings estimates were total nonsense, but he did the deals anyway because he made billions of dollars off of them. I have a real issue with the SPAC deal structure. I think I've written an article about this, just why I think I don't want to use the term unethical, but to me it misleads investors, because you can make these pie in the sky ridiculous claims about revenue estimates and earnings estimates that the insiders know well are nonsense, but they just make a huge amount of money when the thing hits the market. And the people who are buying these SPACs when they're just on the market, by and large, are retail investors that hold them to zero or down 90%. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic about it, go look at every single SPAC deal that Chamath has done, every one of them, and write them down and tell me where those tickers are now. A lot of them are totally kaput, out of business, zeros out across on the portfolio. And many of them are down 70, 80, 90% because these companies are garbage. But it was the perfect environment to do a bunch of these SPAC deals in 2021, right? The liquidity was everywhere, raging bull market, low interest rates, fiscal and monetary stimulus crushing, but most of the SPACs, oh man, it's really windy now. Let's try to cross, see if we can mitigate some of the wind. I almost remember it. It was 2021. You would turn on CNBC and it was like a new company was coming to market every day. A new SPAC, this SPAC, this SPAC. Chamath on the TV pumping these things. Surfs flat traders, as yeah, I remember well. And then he doesn't talk about him anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, Alistar. I don't know what's going on with the internet. I think Verizon may be definitely doing some sort of work on the towers, because the service is a little spotty tonight as we walk past BlackRock. So right as we turn this corner, let's take one more look at the Empire. We're going to come up on the beautiful vessel. Cosmo's scary. The noodles were fantastic. Fantastic. The place is really good. Steven, what's up? Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. That's probably my favorite spot in Chelsea Market. I think that's what the place is called. I think it's called Really Good Noodles. I think that's literally the name of the place. I have my other phone, let me see. Because that place really does deserve a shout out. That place is very good. The food is fantastic. Let me see. We'll take a quick intermission. It's Friday night. I want to recommend a very good place for you guys. If you come to New York City this summer, you got to go there. Very fresh noodles. This is what it is, everybody. So jot it down. Oh, that was almost a rear end collision. 409 West 15th Street. Very fresh noodles. This place is absolutely fantastic. Trust me. And it's very affordable too. It's like $15. So anytime we run up on good restaurants, I always like to give them a shout out. You know, they're small businesses. So check out Chelsea Market. The line is pretty long though. I think I was waiting in the line for like 30 minutes, but it is well worth it. Trust me. Oh, Leanne, you've been there? Yeah, that place is awesome. I love that place. It's so good. I always get, so you can get the noodles two ways. You can get it dry or you can get it in the soup. I usually get it in the soup, but it was like 90 degrees today. So I'm like, I think I'll probably get the noodles dry. Lee says Verizon, there is a known issue in the area and they're working on the solution. 10-4. Copy that. Marketing videography's #1 tacos are horrible. Hey, Points Traveler, what's up? Rotten says, I read 20,000 rentals will never be refurbished because they'll never get their money back. Well, that has to do with a lot of the rent control and the rent caps. So it's true that, and I think the number is a little bit over that. I think the number is more like, I think it may be like 60,000 throughout New York City rental units that are vacant, that are off the market, that will never come on the market, because those rental units they really need to be renovated. They really, really do. You can't rent them out as is. The problem is the landlords won't spend the money to get them rent ready because they wouldn't be able to list them for rent at the market price because of the rent stabilization. So yes, that is true that in New York City, you have thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of rental units that are totally vacant that need significant work. I mean, you may need to put, $40,000 a door into this to get them rent ready. Problem is, there's no incentivization to do that because you'd never get your money back. So why make the investment when you could just let them sit vacant and make some money on the stuff you do have? So that is true. Man, beautiful view of the vessel tonight. We have some investors that are like, look, we're looking to buy multifamily in New York City, but send us everything that's not rent stabilized. We don't want to look at any rent stabilized units. Leanne says Tacombe Taco is excellent. Why does that sound familiar? I think they have locations everywhere. Tacombe. There's one on the Upper West Side. There's one in the Village. Andrew, yeah, hims, hers. So one of my really good friends who's a very successful hedge fund manager, I think is long that stock. That's so funny. If my phone doesn't die, let me pull up the text he sent to me about it. I just won't buy that stuff because I don't know anything about it. I'm not in the biotech. Like, it's just, hold on, let me see if I can pull up the, yeah, ticker symbol HIMS. Yeah, I know some managers who are along that, but I'm not. I think they make, what do they make? What is their drug? trying to go through my emails in real time. It's so funny you bring that up. Oh, it's like a weight loss drug. Diabetes, kind of like Ozempic. Yeah, I mean, so the problem is, it's probably great. I just don't know enough about it, to be honest. I didn't study biology. I'm not, I have no medical experience, really no medical background. So I'm sure there's a lot of money to be made there. It's just, I can't be the jack of all trades, is kind of how I think about it. Because then you got to follow like all the FDA approvals and the recalls, or what, you know, drug is better than the other. But if you really think about it, if you think about like Vivek Ramaswamy and Martin Shkreli, I'm sure all of you know those two. They have extensive backgrounds in biotech and biology, and they made billions of dollars, right? In Martin Shkreli's case, hundreds of millions. Vivek, for his companies, billions. If you know a lot about biotech, a lot about biology, and you know which drugs are good and which drugs are bad, also some of the larger players out there, right? The big pharmaceutical companies. Real quick, I was gonna take you on the High Line, I forgot it's closed, so we just gotta wrap around and then head down. In any event, some of the big players, the biggest pharmaceutical companies, will sell off some of their drugs at penny on the dollar prices because the TAM just isn't there. So for example, if you're a huge pharmaceutical company like Eli Lilly, you know, the big players, right? AstraZeneca and the like, you're not gonna invest significant amounts of R&D dollars to a drug that only will address, you know, 1,000 people a year, right? There's some rare disease drugs out there that like literally 1,000 people globally take. You know, they're going to focus on the big players, you know, the allergy medicines, things that everybody takes. So oftentimes they'll sell off older drugs, and these investors, these rare disease drug companies, it's kind of like biotech VC firms, will come in there, buy these drugs that are like, okay, there's some potential here. It's kind of like a dead project. The big players haven't really put much R&D in it, and then they'll either arbitrage it to a pharmaceutical startup and flip the drug for sometimes 100x markup, or, you know, hire their own people, raise the price of the drug, use the proceeds to improve upon the drug, and then sell the drug. So there's a ton of opportunity in biotech if you really know about drugs and you know about medicines. There's an absolute fortune to be made. Unfortunately, I'm not smart in that category. But if you really get deep into the weeds, you have a degree in biology, there's thunder money to be made in biotech. Now, I've said this before, the problem with these very niche biotech companies, they're very dependent on one product. And that product is oftentimes at the whim of the FDA. So if there's rumors that they gain approval or not, okay, yeah, the stock could automatically re-rate to its appropriate value, because once the FDA approves it, well, then that means all those people are going to buy the drug and the TAM explodes overnight. But it's the same in reverse. If it goes through all the clinical trials, it gets to the finish line, there's some rumor that the FDA is not going to approve it, they don't approve it, the stock drops 50% overnight, and then the company is pretty much worthless. Pretty much. Because a lot of these biotech companies have maybe one or two drugs, right? And if the drug doesn't work, now there's no company. So I don't really own, I don't think I've ever owned pharmaceutical companies or biotech companies outright. Obviously, I own pharmaceutical companies in the index, right? Everybody does. If you own the S&P 500, you own like Eli Lilly, all that stuff. But I just don't have the experience, the credentials, the expertise. That's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is enterprise software, and quite thankfully, over the last decade, the part of the market that's generated the most returns is SaaS and enterprise software. So I kind of got lucky there, but I think you'll probably have another biotech revolution where biotech leads the market, and a lot of people will make a lot of money, and I probably won't make any money. That's all right. This is where we witnessed that crazy hit and run accident on Thanksgiving. Western Mass Dave says every other commercial is a drug company for sure. Now, is this true, now that Dave brings this up, is it true that in most countries they don't allow the heavy marketing by pharma like we do in the United States? I feel like I heard that from somewhere, but I'm not too sure if that's true. So we're gonna head all the way down to Meatpacking. Sorry about that. And Chelsea Market. Shannon says it is true. Dave's is not sure, Tom. Good question. I think it is true. I think there's heavier regulation on advertising of big pharma overseas than it is here. Shannon says only the United States and New Zealand allows commercials for drugs. Now, I never really watch cable news, but occasionally I travel, I stay at a hotel or something like that, and I'll turn on the TV. And my God, Dave, are you right? If you're watching, you flip through CNN, you flip through Fox News. This is the Zaha Hadid building, which we walked past earlier today. This is cool that you guys got to see it from the High Line and a little bit further away. I think this is such a cool building. Such a cool, unique design. What do you guys think? Since we're here, let's walk directly past it. We'll see what the front door looks like. But what I was gonna say, I actually forgot what I was gonna say. I guess it doesn't matter. It's Friday, my brain is cooked. I think we were talking about, oh yeah. So sometimes I watch cable news, and if it's Fox News or if it's CNN, every other commercial is, either about life insurance. Wait, you're telling us, please tell me we have life insurance. You don't? For only $9.95, you can get life insurance. It's just like spam life insurance and pharma ads. I don't think I've seen anything else but pharmaceutical advertisements and life insurance if you turn on Fox News or CNN. All right, let's cross here and check it out. It's pretty cool. The lobby pretty much looks like a museum. Not too sure if you can see all the way to the elevator banks, but it's very museum-esque. This is a beautiful building. Kind of looks like a spaceship. And then you see those balconies overlooking the High Line. So as we continue down, we're also going to see Lantern House, which is another really great building. Yeah, that's true too. MBA Elias is like half the pharmaceutical advertisement is just listing the side effects in record speed too. It's like they use 5x or 6x the speed and crush through the side effects. That's also kind of why, you know, going back to the hims, hers thing, we were talking about Ozempic, a lot of that stuff. I know a lot of hedge fund managers who are super long that stuff. And it's just not for me, because here's another thing to think about. Imagine, you know, we get some data or this study comes out, right? Which could potentially be sponsored by like some short seller firm. And imagine there's this, you know, hit research piece about, you know, Ozempic is actually not healthy. There's already like some inklings of this in the market to say if you take this, yeah, you lose the weight, but you may be eroding muscle as well. So you could potentially be losing all the weight, deteriorating all of your muscle, and if you stop taking it, you're going to gain all the weight back, but you're not going to gain any of the muscle back. So there could potentially be like a really horrible long-term side effect here, to where we are putting everybody on these drugs. They're seeing the results, right? And I'm using air quotes. They're seeing the results on paper of the weight dropping off, but the moment they stop taking it, the weight comes right back, but none of the muscle comes back. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. But what if in 5 years we find out that's true? That could be a cataclysmic disaster for the industry. MDs, sometimes the side effects are worse than the original condition, for sure. This is the Avenue School. At least I think it's the Avenue School. People pay like $70,000 a year to send their kids here. Isn't that crazy? Avenues. See, this is one thing I don't get. And look, if you want to send your kids to a $70,000 a year school, I mean, by all means, that's your right to do that. I mean, do you think you're really going to be that much better off in life? I mean, maybe. I didn't go to these $70,000 a year middle schools, but I don't know. I think it's a little... I think at that upper level, when you're paying that much money for elementary school, middle school, and high school, do you really want your kids just to hang out with a bunch of other rich people? I don't know. I don't think that's gonna give them a good worldview. I think public school's all right. Sometimes it's good to have your kids go through those adversities, right? Interact with kids from all different backgrounds. But if you're just putting the kid in with, you know, this banker's kid, that banker's kid, or this and that, it's like, I don't know, it's a little stiff to me. Just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just a little bit too stiff. Cheese Puff says, yeah, but they'll get into an Ivy League school. No, I get it. I get it. Trust me, but... And they have the money to do it, so by all means. But I don't know, if I had that type of money, still, I don't know if I could justify writing a check for 50 grand to send the kid to private school or something. Like, is it that bad? I don't know. I went to public school. I think most people in here went to public school. Now, there is a big push now towards homeschooling, particularly after the pandemic. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Carol H says adversity creates character, for sure, 100%. You know, I think everybody should really watch that interview with the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen. And there was a part in the interview where the interviewer was talking about, you know, what's the greatest predictor of success in a person? And he kind of talked about exactly what Carol H said, right? It's about conditioning yourself to persevere through adversity at all costs. And what he said is, in a lot of these kids, not all, you know, in some, that are brought up going to the best private schools, right? Going to that boarding school, the Berkshires, right? Getting A's on everything. Going to the Ivy League school, getting A's on everything across the board. It conditions them to not have to go through like the normal things that can go wrong. So when sometimes, and again, not all the time, but when they get out into the real world and there's a problem and they have to overcome something, you know, it's not going to be like going to the Berkshires or, you know, just being able to sit in the library at Harvard and study your way out of the problem. So I think sometimes that grit, that adversity is very, very good. So if you can condition yourself and train yourself to put yourselves in those sticky situations and just keep hammering through it, sometimes that's the biggest predictor of success, according to Jensen. Yeah, Professor Dario says, we say resilience. Yeah, I think teaching kids to be just extremely resilient, right? Not fall into pieces if you don't win something or if you fail at something. Don't fall into a million pieces. You know, pick yourself up and just keep hammering it, right? Keep hammering on the project forever. Line sync, what's up? MD says, I have several family members who were homeschooled. They graduated from various colleges and have successful careers. Yeah, and apparently it's this big trend now, people homeschooling their kids. Maybe it's a significant viable option. All right, we're almost there. We're gonna walk around meatpacking a little bit. And here we have arrived at Lantern House. So our new development that we're running sales on is literally right across the street. I'll take you guys there, but here we have Lantern House. KML says, I get homeschooling, but doesn't it promote isolation? No, I mean, I guess, you know, homeschooling in the name, right, can maybe be a little bit misleading. It just means you don't go into the class every day. But let's say if you're just doing your curriculum, you know, at home or online, but then during the day you're, you know, out in the city, you have a job, you're networking with people, and you just plunge yourself into the real world as soon as possible, I could see how that could be very, very rewarding for a kid, for sure. This is 19th Street. I don't know if I have the fob to get in here. Let's see. I don't think I do, but in any event, here it is. #135 West 19th. Now the views from the penthouse units are pretty cool. You pretty much have an unobstructed view of all of Midtown Manhattan. You can even see a little bit of the spire of the Empire State Building. I think I have a video up of one of the penthouse units, but as you can see here, 435 West 19th Street. That's us, the KJ team. Studios to 3 bedrooms. It's been selling okay, but with the Lantern House being adjacent to us, it's stiff competition. But at least you're right next to the High Line. Doc Seven says went to private college and never heard about budget problems, etc. Then went to public university, and all that was ever talked about is, yeah, no money for this, no money for that. Yeah, it's the same thing with CUNY schools. Everything is strung together with a shoestring budget. Lantern House is pretty cool, but I think the closer you get to meatpacking, the more desirable it is. Yeah, everything in Miami. Artichoke pizza's right here on the left. I'm not a big fan of artichoke though, to be honest. Not a fan. It's a cool location though in there. I think that's the original. Mad Mappers, it's dark over here. Very. I mean, what a difference. This neighborhood during the day and this neighborhood at night. This neighborhood is packed during the day. The High Line tonight, or earlier today, was packed. Right over here is Mel's. This is my friend's restaurant. Show you the front door right here. Right through here. It's a good spot. Check it out. It was right next to Alcoro, which unfortunately closed down. My friend said Alcoro was paying like I think he said $55,000 a month in rent, which is insane, but that's how much it was. Carol H says, what's the type of cuisine? It's Italian food. It's like an upscale pizzeria, but it's not what you think. It's very, very good. That's really the only way I could explain it. It's an upscale pizzeria, which is a good explanation, but it's also a bad explanation. So I would say more so upscale pizzeria. They have good seafood. All right, this is Rivian. Not a big fan of Rivian, to be honest. It just doesn't have that wow factor like Tesla does. Come on, everybody, this is 14th Street. We're gonna cross as we get heckled by these kids. We'll just try to ignore them. And then we will cross to the right. And if Little Island's open, I'll take you all the way to the top. It says it's open to midnight, I think. Yeah, Peter says Volkswagen invested $5 billion into Rivian. Everything in Miami says you love the truck. Really? Ah, man, I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me, the look. I think Tesla is, maybe I just have a bias, but if you see that truck in the window, put it up to a Cybertruck, I think a Cybertruck all day. Let me check what time it is, because it may be midnight already. It looks like the park is closed, we'll see. So we're now crossing to a little place called Little Island. And this place absolutely blew me away today. They just did a fantastic job here. The internet's gonna be a little spotty. It was spotty earlier. Ooh, it's 11:55. I think it is closed. I think it closes at midnight. Yeah, it is. Damn. That's all right. But look at how cool it looks. And you have these incredible views of the World Trade Center. Watch as we pan over to the left. You have a beautiful shot of the World Trade Center all the way in Lower Manhattan. But we were here earlier today and they did an absolute masterpiece on Little Island. Unbelievable. Such a cool, unique place. And you also have great views in New Jersey too. That's all Hoboken. To the left is the Whitney Museum, which is free on Friday nights. Let's make this right and check out these soccer fields. These must be new. I never remember these being here. Oh, Ethan G, is that right? I kind of like it humid though. I should be back in Miami tomorrow or the next day. To be determined. Wow, look at how unique that looks. That's crazy. The further you go down on Little Island, this part looks wild. Doesn't it? That looks insane. And you can see a little bit of the top of One Vanderbilt. That little blue dot in the distance, it's One Vanderbilt. Let's check out these soccer fields. Ooh, these look nice. Man, it looks really great. Now, I used to play soccer at Chelsea Piers, where you would have a really good view of Lower Manhattan. You have a pretty good view of Lower Manhattan from here too. looks like this is open 24/7. This brings back memories of Chelsea Piers. It's pretty cool, right? Man, I haven't stepped on a soccer field since I played in college. Feels good. This is pretty cool. Turf feels good. Usually the turf is very stiff. But yeah, we used to play Chelsea Piers. We were higher up, and you could see an incredible view of all of Lower Manhattan. That's where we would play our games. That's the cool thing about going to college in the city. If you play soccer, where you play is pretty cool. It's like pitch looks good. Ukes is how many steps do I get in a day? In the summer, it can get up there. Maybe 25. On some crazy days, sometimes we could push 30. Wow, the city just did such a fantastic job on all these athletic fields. And it's all free to the public, which is amazing. Let's cross the street and go a little bit further into meatpacking. I forgot we started the live stream so late. So it's already midnight now, which is pretty crazy. But in New York City, you really lose track of time. Feels like it's 9 o'clock at night. I think where the best place to cross is. I think we have to go up one more block right by Pier 57. This bike path is awesome too. Perfect timing, we got the light. just don't trust these cars, even though they're supposed to stop. I don't know, I don't trust. Zero trust. Like Zscaler. Someone says best restaurant in South Beach, or best Cuban restaurant in South Beach. I'm not sure about South Beach, but in North Beach, I'd say it's Sazon Cuban Bakery, or it's not bakery, Sazon Cuban Restaurant, and that's where me and everything in Miami go to eat when I'm back there in North Beach, which is considered Little Buenos Aires. And that place is totally renovated now. So check it out. Sazon Cuban in Little Buenos Aires. I think it's on the corner of 75th Street. It's either 74th or 75th Street, but that's a good spot. It's a really, really good spot. Speaking of Tesla, here's the Cybertruck. I like how it has that one big wiper. And here's the Tesla bot. I can't believe that this is a real thing that they're gonna build. Isn't that wild? That's right out of the movie I, Robot. Arcade. It doesn't look like the Terminator. It's crazy. Love is kind says, what will it do? It'll probably take all of our jobs. It's probably what it'll do. Dominate human civilization, take all of our jobs. I'm just kidding. Maybe not. Who knows? So if we make this left, it's going to bring us right to Google. Cool little neighborhood here. Hi everyone, but it's getting late. It's way past midnight. So I think we'll probably call it a night. But we'll see you tomorrow. So thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful weekend. Try Trust you had a successful week. And we'll see you right back here live from New York City. So signing off from the Meatpacking District. See all of you tomorrow. So thank you, Mark Francis, Professor Dario, thank you. Anna, Nina, Tatted T, all of our moderators, Boston City Limits, DM, Alley Star, Western Mass Dave. Have a wonderful weekend, be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.